Klein already wakes up in a strange, magical Victorian world trapped in another's body. Faced with dark rituals and hidden secrets, can he uncover the truth or lose himself to madness? Our new story begins with Klein wakes up in a body that he doesn't recognize in a home he's only got faint memories of. Fear strikes him as he sees a revolver in front of him and a gaping hole in the side of his head. Despite all this, Klein seems unfazed and attributes it all to having transmigrated into someone else's body in another world as if it were a normal Tuesday. He starts piecing everything together about this Klein person and remembers that he was working on a case and deciphering his journal. As he checks the entries, his jaw drops when he sees some cryptic entries about everyone biting the dust on a blood-soaked page before he has a chance to collect his thoughts and piece everything together. His sister Melissa walks into his room for some classic younger sibling snooping. Klein recognizes her and immediately plays a solo match of Hide the Revolver. While talking to her, he thinks about how Klein's memories were scattered and left out a lot of key information, but it was certainly connected to the ominous ancient book that he had found. That is when he remembers that he had done an occult ritual to try to change his luck, which had surely messed everything up. After some mindless back and forth, Melissa tells him to stop being a jobless bum and go buy some bread while she heads to school, and he complies, determined to try the luck-changing ritual again to see if he could return to his world. While buying bread, the old woman at the store congratulates him on finally graduating from studies and looking for a job. But Klein is too distraught by the parallel world he has transmigrated to. He's pulled out of his trance by the nagging feeling of someone stalking him like a crazed ex who can't take no for an answer. He leaves the shop, and while thinking about how closely this world resembled Earth, he notices someone following him, nearly blowing off a clown's head in his jumpy state. He starts cautiously backing away until he is inside a tent where a fortune teller tells him that she'd read his past, present, and future for free like an Etsy tarot witch. Klein reluctantly gives in, and the woman places 3 cards in front of him representing his past, present, and future. When Klein asks her to reveal the present card, she reveals it to be tarot card. The Fool, however, before she gets to reveal the rest, the actual fortune teller comes in and clocks the imposter, who was a circus freak bimbo. So Klein heads home and tries to perform the luck-changing ritual to see if it would bring him back home. However, the ritual does not go as planned, and after feeling like he had failed, he is suddenly transported to another plane of existence along with a well-groomed girl, Audrey, and a macho nonchalant dude named Alger. They ask Klein why he had summoned the 2 of them to the divine realm while talking about powers of Bayander magicians. And Klein realizes that is he actually the one who created that plane of existence and even sets up a temple and a castle. Noticing that Alger was cautious of him, he asks him to answer Audrey's question about becoming a Bayander and how one needed to join an organization to become capable, and Audrey gets soaked hearing about all of this, begging Alger for a potion to give her powers too. All the while Klein, the dense idiot, is trying to figure out what levels in Beyonders meant, but what he does know is that he's powerful, and the ego goes straight to his noggin. He asks the 2 to call him the Fool like the tarot card, and they decide on nicknames too, Audrey being Justice and Alger being the Hanged Man, while Klein bears witness to a magic deal between Alger and Audrey to keep his identity safe. He offers to meet his new servants in this realm once a week, warning them to be alone before he can get off to how powerful he was in this world. Klein gets drained and ends the meeting, ending back up in his room. Just then, a knock on the door tightens his balloon knot when he hears that it's the police, and after hiding the sus evidence, he opens the door to find the stalker from earlier named Leonard. After introducing himself, he barges in with his partner Dunn, and they rack his brain, telling him how a couple had been shot, and he was a suspect. And after coming clean about not having his memories, Dunn tells him that he won't be let off the hook without a professional psychic evaluation. They even find the notebook with the ominous message of everyone passing away and decide not to trust him even though he cooperated enough to tell them where the revolver was. They take him outside to escort him, but as soon as Dunn gets distracted, Klein makes a run for it since he didn't want anyone to figure out he was a transmigrator only to get mobbed by space and time manipulation magic. After thinking he got off scot-free, Dunn shocks him by being the carriage rider he had run off with. And then Klein proceeded to have a fever dream where a baddie was trying to interrogate him while he saw visions of his paw. Rents like a bad LSD trip. However, it turns out to be a dream as Klein wakes up in a sweat. However, Dunn is there with the lady from his dream, Dolly, who turned out to be the psychic. They were both Beyanders with incredible strength and told him to keep an eye out since they were not his babysitters unless he agreed to become a Beyander and attain godly powers. After debating whether joining the Nighthawks to become a Beyander was a good choice, Klein decides that attaining knowledge about the supernatural world and its dynamics would help him in the long run. But he had to be safe not to spill the beans about his identity as a transmigrator. Following a set of instructions by Dunn, he finds himself in a sketchy bar full of drunk men and animals fighting and tearing each other up as naturally as scratching their bums when they woke up. After being called an idiot babyface, Klein says some code words to the bartender, who leads him through a secret area away from the noise and into the Nighthawk headquarters. There, he meets the clumsy receptionist, Roseanne, who leads him through a secret corridor to bring him to their captain. While going there, she introduces the other Nighthawk members that they walk past, including the nonchalant Betty Rail, the cool sketcher with a permanent RBF fry, and the loser Noob Kenley. Finally, Roseanne leads Klein to the captain's quarters and takes her leave, saying that she was too chicken to actually talk to him. Entering the room, he finds Dunn looking all smug and hyping Klein up for his decision to become a Bayer after some tedious paperwork. He holds out a candle and leads Klein to a secret room that is a memorial for all the Bayenders who had lost their lives trying to keep peace in the world by fighting the supernatural. He told Klein that the power often drove people mad, so he had to be careful. Then he explained how magic was deeply rooted in their world and even mere plebs like him could attain power by drinking potions made of mystical ingredients. Before leaving him to decide what class of Beyonder he wanted to be, after he gets shooed away to find the alchemist Neil, Klein debates which class would help him get the most amount of knowledge stat. And before he knows it, he's in Neil's office seeing an old fart who asks him to help him arrange some documents. As they're sifting through the messy office, Klein sees some transcripts that Neil announces is from the Emperor Rafael's time, but the language was outdated, so it was hard to piece anything together. However, Klein's jaw drops when he realizes that it was Rafael's personal diary written in basic Chinese. And he was able to read about what a stud the Emperor was and how he regretted not picking the Seer class of the BYONDRS. After Neil snaps him back to reality, and knowing that the noob had mocked him and outdone his life's work, Klein tells him that he had decided to become a seer. And so Neil gets to work making the Bayender potion like a disgusting breakfast smoothie and offers it to Klein, who is repulsed and thinks he's going to be poisoning. After tightening his screws and nuts, he gulps down the potion and is suddenly overwhelmed by the burst of power that he is experiencing. Neil talks him through it by telling him how to calibrate his magic and how the aura he could now see around people and objects was normal. However, what the old man didn't expect was for Klein's power to be great enough to rumble the entire headquarters. After calming down, Klein is told by Neil that using too much of his power would drain him physically, and there was a bunch of cool stuff like divination and magic rituals he could do. Now, after that, he sends him away to Dunn with a receipt, and Dunn congratulates the noob for making it through initiation. However, before he could go in the front lines, he would be a clerk to the Nighthawks, making more than the average guy per week. Soon, he's assigned to roam around a house every day with his new seer abilities to see if they can locate Del O's notebook. However, Leonard comes to him one day with an odd job. A regular customer's son, Elliot, had been kidnapped, and Klein used his seer abilities to locate him, and they reached a gloomy house. Inside, Klein tells Leonard that there were two kidnappers and Elliot in a room at the end of a corridor, and Leonard barges in using his magic abilities and solos the losers as if they weighed nothing. After securing the boy, they're about to leave when Klein gets an uneasy feeling, and before their eyes, the two knocked out kidnappers turn into one rogue Beyonder beast who had gone mad. And Klein rushes outside the room with Elliot. Meanwhile, Leonard bullies the beast until it tries to run away, but Klein clocks it and shoots it with the revolver, and then Leonard uses his special magic ability to put it to sleep. After that is dealt with, Leonard acts zesty and tells Klein there was something exciting about him, and Klein runs off before he can get freaky. Before he leaves, he gets a strange sensation from one room in the house, but thinks nothing of it. As he's returning home for the day, he has a horrible vision about ending up back in the gloomy house with the strange room, and gets a flash of the missing notebook before his eyes. When he comes to and realizes it was a dream, he has a gut feeling that Klein had been to the house before and there was a clue there that would lead him to the truth about the notebook with the Amanu.'s prophecy. That's it for today's video. If you enjoy this recap, comment down below Leonard is zesty and hit the like button for part.
Back at headquarters, Dunn and Leonard are interrogating a suspect, with Dunn using his nightmare abilities to get a peek into the guy's mind, revealing that he had spread the antagonist's notebook to the Secret Order, a mysterious organization, and sold it. Just then, an employee barges into the room and informs Dunn that Klein had a lead on the notebook's whereabouts. So Dunn, Leonard, and Klein follow up and find themselves at the Bieber's residence, with the family slaughtered and insects crawling all over their rotting bodies. The scene makes Klein almost throw up his medieval breakfast, but Dunn gives him a whiff of a magic potion that eases him up. Leonard notices that the dead family's son, Ray, was missing, and puts Klein to work by tossing a photo of Ray in his direction. However, the divination ritual goes wrong as Klein is almost impaled by his own seer rod, and Dunn informs them that a superior magic power had interfered, so they would contact the cathedral and find their missing guy that way. Later, Dunn and Clean are waiting to rend Devis with some cathedral officials when he hands Clean a topaz pendulum, telling him that it would boost his seer abilities, and then informing him that the superiors had allowed the use of a dangerous grade 2 magic weapon to help with the mission, which was being delivered as they speak. Soon, 3 officials show up and Dunn introduces Clean to the 2 men, Ior and Bora. And the third one turns out to be Dolly, who had done the psychic evaluation on Clean. However, Dunn's expression turns grim when he learns which magic tool had been delivered, claiming that it was too risky. The guys argued that it was their best bet at locating Ray, who was supposedly a descendant of the antagonist family, and the tool was their family's creation. Ayer tells them all to shut their traps since he was only responsible for the magic tool, and told them to start stroking off the air around them to safeguard themselves from its effect, since they were now beginning. Clean questions his life choices watching adults performing humiliating exercises but complies. And Ayer soon activates the tool, and out comes an adorable clown puppet. Or so Clean thought. Within seconds, the clown turns hostile and time slows down as Clean feels his throat closing as the doll approaches him. But Leonard breaks his trance by slapping his shoulder, and the workings of the tool are explained. The clown puppet was not alive, and it picked 1 or 2 humans from within a few meters and turned them into puppets, and it was now stalking Klein like an obsessed girlfriend. As they're playing their game of murder tag, Ayer drops Bieber's coat and the clown starts to go haywire, confirmed his relationship to the antagonist's family. Then they seal away the aggressive tool and launch the search for Rai instantly. However, Klein dies a little inside when he is forced to march through the streets pretending to beat off an invisible patron, as the squad makes their way to a carriage, and Leonard tells him to stop acting freaky and hop inside. Somewhere in town in an abandoned warehouse, a secret order member who had gotten his hands on the notebook was conducting a dark magic ritual to absorb the notebook and become insanely overpowered. A guy wearing clown makeup and a suit is spying on the ritual, cursing himself for being too late to get the notebook, but then performs magic in hopes of making the best of a bad situation, and it surprisingly works. Just then, the squad uses Klein's abilities and the clown puppet to land at the exact same warehouse. But as soon as they're trying to get in after Clean uses the topaz pendulum, the building erupts and out comes a berserk bear who looks like he never skipped a meal. Clean chickens out and Dunn hands him a sleep charm as he and Leonard use their ability, Midnight Poet, to try and defeat the beast. However, it does not go down, and Dunn realizes that it was not a berserk beyonder, but rather a dead soul that was being used through dark magic. It looks like the beast wants to get its hand on the clown puppet, and Dunn urges Dolly to find its weakness while he and Leonard try to subdue him, even though their magic was useless against it. Dolly uses her mystic eye and tells them that she needed the beast to stay still for 3 seconds to defeat it. And the Nighthawks get to work, but they get bodied before they can do anything. Leonard is beaten to a pulp while Dunn gets impaled while trying to tie the beast down with a magic net. Then, even Ior and Bora are defeated as they try to protect the clown puppet, and Klein thinks that all hope is lost. However, he musters the strength to use the sleep charms, and seeing her window, Dolly uses her special spell, Nether's Hand, and obliterates the beast, going down with it. Dunn quickly rushes over and gives her a healing potion while she is still unconscious, and out of the corner of his eye sees Klein holding the notebook and the strange suited clown running after him. Before the clown can reach, Dunn shoots him, but learns that it was just an illusion and the real enemy was lurking nearby. And so he tells Klein to stay away from the puppet while the others try to defeat the mysterious enemy. However, the clown's swag is too strong and he manages to dodge everything that Aor, Bura, Lenar, and Dunn could throw at him. Mogged by how strong the enemy was and how he seemed to predict the next attack, Klein leaves it up to the gotcha gods and shoots his revolver randomly, landing a hit. Just when the squad thinks that they have a chance of winning, the clown gets near the puppet tool that Aor and Bora were guarding and summons it to him, making time stop as all of the men are suddenly turned into puppets. Klein panics and starts thinking up ways to avoid the puppet's influence, and it hits him that he could transport to the divine realm, essentially acting as an external force to jolt him awake. To his surprise, it works, and he knows that he needs to hurry before his friends turn into mincemeat. So he uses the pendulum for divination to see if going back is safe, and then heads back. His migration had worked, and he was now free, but the suited clown was unaware. He walked up to Klein using illusion magic and offered to free him and even tell him what the next sequence of the seer was, and it would remain a secret between the two of them, since the others were not conscious. In return, the clown asks Klein for the antagonist's notebook, and after telling him the next sequence, he extends his cane to get the notebook. But Klein clocks him by moving and shooting at him. Then he takes a few more shots to send the clown to hell, and just when he's about to sigh in relief, the stubborn enemy rises again and starts mumbling about something called Horus, before finally kicking the bucket. Klein sees the secret order mark on his body, and finally, free of the pest, he helps all of his friends regain control over their bodies. And Dunn applauds him for a job well done. As they are sorting through the haze, Leonard walks up to Klein and reveals that he was conscious during the puppet's control as well, and that Klein was not the only special hotshot in town. Later, Dunn tells Klein that he had done amazing against a Bayander much more powerful than him, and that the cathedral would be glad to learn how he had taken out a secret order member on his own. Klein hates himself for taking someone's life, but Dunn tells him that he has saved countless lives by taking action. Then Clean tells him that he knew the next sequence for the seer and that it was the clown sequence to get to level 8. After all the formalities are done, Ayer and Bora leave with the crazy clown doll and tell Clean that he was a promising lad, asking him about how he defeated the Bayander, and then Dunn tells him to take the day off while he escorts Dolly back to her place. However, Clem still cannot get Horace and the clown's corpse out of his head, so he decided to head to his old university professor Isaac and ask about the phrase. When he gets there, Isaac welcomes him warmly, but tells him that while the Horus mountain range and the Evernight magic folk that inhabited it sounded familiar, he was unsure, and Clem told him to write to him if it rang any bells. When he was leaving, Isaac gets sus about why he was poking his nose in these historical artifacts, and Clean just brushes it off as working for a security company that retrieved artifacts. Isaac cryptically warns him not to venture too deep into the dark side, for there were horrors beyond comprehension for those who did. And then Klein leaves. Watching him from his office window, Asik reveals that he is a Beyonder, using magic to assemble a ghastly skeleton figure. That's it for today's video. If you enjoy this recap, comment down below, Leonard is zesty, and hit the like button for part